Welcome to this week's episode of Lifts. We've got an interesting guest this week, and we're just talking off camera about last time we had a chat. I was at the end of my vacation. It was right in the middle of the pandemic, and I think you're in the middle of some kind of quarantine. Is that right, Ty?
Yeah, I was just back and forth between quarantines, between traveling from the US back to Australia, where hard border lockdowns and requiring everyone to do 2-week hotel quarantines every time we went back. So was fortunate to get to do that a few times, my friend.
Well, it's good that you're still around, and I'm glad that we're still here. I think at that point, everybody was questioning whether the industry would return and people would get back to gym.
Well, we're certainly seeing people get back to gym, which is really fantastic. I think that's been proven over the last couple of years for sure.
Well, Mo, I'll let you do an official intro.
Yeah, Ty, really good to have you on. And just for the audience, I'm going to do a short bio. What I got sent, given all of your illustrious career, would take us about 5 minutes to go through, and this is a 30-minute episode. So I'm going to summarize it a bit here. But on today's episode, we have Ty Menzies, who is the global CEO of Lyft Brands. Ty is a natural-born entrepreneur. He has a passion for health and wellness. He started his career in personal training and in membership sales in Australia and New Zealand, and now is the global CEO of Lyft Brands. I think most people that listen to this podcast are familiar with Lyft Brands, but Ty, would love for you to just do a high-level overview of what is Lyft Brands and what are the brands that you cover.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Bo. First and foremost, we're a franchising business. We have 3 franchise businesses that we're involved in. One that we own wholly and solely called Snap Fitness, about 1,000 units across the globe, 24/7 facilities. It's been around since the 2000s. We're in 8 these days. The other 2 franchise brands, both boutique concepts, one called 9 Round, which is a 30-minute kickboxing brand, about 450 odd locations, about 20 odd countries. We're just a minority partner in that brand, as well another brand called Fitstop, which is an Australian brand, about 150 odd locations, 4 countries, growing quite rapidly. Again, minority partner in that. So quite different in terms of what we have in the market, but we certainly each elements of and across different geographies as well.
And typically, you're based out of the UK, but this week you're at your corporate headquarters in Minnesota, which I find fascinating. So much of fitness kind of happens in this little ecosystem around Minnesota. You've got Lifetime that's based out of there. SEB is based out of there. Lyft is based out of there. Just to kick things off, what do you think has caused Minnesota to be this hub for so much in fitness?
To be completely honest, I'm not sure. I think the 3 gentlemen that founded each of the businesses, all locals, all similar ages, maybe just a few years between them, so they were all industry people during that period. I think so. Did they all know one another? Probably. Did they all share ideas? Probably. But it's interesting how this particular hub has got 3 of the biggest players across the globe.
One of the things I was interested in, Ty, is you're probably one of the few people that has a unique perspective of those different channels that you mentioned, from boutique fitness to clubs to a digital product, and also having operating. You were based in London, you're in the US, and you also clubs in the Asia Pacific region. What would you say at the moment would be, how are those 3 regions performing, and are there any similarities between the 3 of them? Are there any differences in terms of how each one of those markets is performing from your perspective, and that meaning the Asia Pacific, EMEA, and the US region?
Yeah, I think from a geography perspective, we're seeing similarities. There's not too much dissimilar happening across from a geography perspective. I mean, we are from modality perspective. We're certainly seeing from our perspective that the traditional gym space, certainly our mid-tier Snap Fitness locations, are doing extremely well. Not even just post-COVID, but even if we compare against our pre-COVID performance, we're performing really well. And that's across our 3 major regions. We sort of bucket our groups as Americas, the EMEA region, and then the APAC region. We're probably seeing a little bit more progress in the EMEA region, in particular across the UK and Ireland. A bit better performance there on a pre-COVID average basis. But in all 3 regions, we're seeing good performance. I think that what we're seeing now is, when I look at the boutique sector, there's some key areas in the boutique space. Certainly Pilates seems to be kicking on reasonably well. The general functional training space has slowed down. And I think it'll be interesting to see probably two things that I believe are driving that. One, you've got a much better educated consumer, which has actually impacted our digital virtual solution in some ways. And you've obviously seen that from a Peloton perspective and so on, where when we look at the boutique consumer, they were really going to a boutique to do something intense for a short period of time, quite often then going off into a traditional gym space. But then couple the fact with they've got a lot more access to digital virtual content, whether that be through another provider, just an online platform or whatever it might be. And so we're seeing pretty significant consumption of digital virtual workouts and content. I think that's educating the consumer quite well. They're not necessarily needing that extra support that a boutique tends to offer with a coach there all the time to hold your hand through your workout. But additional to that, the high price single modality type options are just not quite as appealing to the consumer at the moment. They're really enjoying going into the traditional gym space, pulling up their phone, finding a workout that they can do, wherever that's been provided from, and finding the space in their gym and doing their routine. And I think that being able to do that with content that they're able to easily access at a price point that suits what they're after and their spending level, whether that be the HVLP low cost providers, whether that be us in the mid tier or even the full service high end clubs like a Lifetime. I think all three of those buckets are seeing really good performance against pre-COVID average. It's just generally the traditional gym space is really performing well. What has that done for our digital virtual space? Interestingly, obviously digital virtual boomed during COVID, and it fell off a bit of a cliff post. We see that in some of the B2C providers in particular. I think the fortunate thing for us, because we're much more focused on the B2B side and really supporting the end consumer through one of our business customers, we've been able to enable those customers, our business customers, to deliver hybrid workout options for their members and their customers, depending on what vertical they're in. And so actually we've seen good performance within our digital solution. But what we've actually interestingly seen is a little bit of a change in the makeup of our customer. So we've probably dropped a little bit in the multifamily housing space and the gym space, but what we've dropped there, actually we've picked up with corporate employers, for example, looking to deliver digital virtual solutions and whether it be white label content for mind, body, mental wellness, nutrition, workouts, all of that sort of stuff, which is becoming really important to keep a healthy workforce. So it's been a really interesting journey. So Matt, I guess when we talk about geography, it's actually what we're seeing globally is quite similar. Certainly the rise of health and fitness across some of the regions that we aren't probably as well penetrated in. So when we think about the United States, where we're north of 20% of the population have a gym membership, and then switch gears to some of the Asian markets that we work in, where it's less than 1%. We're starting to see that really rise. And so I think there's a really big opportunity for us to see an exponential growth through the Asian market, more so than maybe some of the Western countries we operate in today. But that's sort of part of our plan over the next few years.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalogue has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalogue is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
Just a quick one on that digital side. Like, how are you seeing the consumer habits change on the gym floor? Like I've seen fitness on demand, and I've in some places they've had rooms where you do this in, but they're kind of big rooms, and you sort of have one person in, and if someone else comes in, it can be a little bit awkward. And then you also mentioned that people are getting their phones now. They're finding some places on the gym floor and following a workout and getting a bunch of equipment together and just finding a space. Like, what are you seeing in terms of how to pair the content together with the experience of the user that's coming into the facility?
Yeah, we've spent quite a bit of time in this space. One of the areas that we wanted to control is really our content for our members and how we drive the user experience through from basically onboarding a member all the way through the journey with us. And that's really delivered through our Snap Fitness app. That's a white labeled solution that's done through our Fitness on Demand product, and we deliver that to other customers. I think the key for us has been very much around understanding when the consumer's coming in, what do they actually want? And the digital virtual solution in the facility, so Fitness on Demand, was very much born from bringing a group fitness studio to life and filling in some of those gaps where, a group fitness instructor is only going to be there for so many sessions. You can build a much stronger timetable. If a group fitness instructor doesn't turn up, you've still got a solution for your members. So there's certainly that amenity that's really beneficial. When it comes to Fitness on Demand specifically, we knew we needed to broaden our horizons with that product. And so now we're very focused on not just the group fitness studio, but bringing to life the functional training space. We've got a solution for in-club advertising on screens and to be able to monetize that opportunity for clubs. And then we have our white labeled app solution, which is the app solution that we use across Snap Fitness. And I guess the real driver of that was we wanted to really understand what it is that motivates our customer to, one, get going, but more importantly, stay longer. And that tenure of membership is so critical. I mean, as a gym owner, it's not so much necessarily how much you're charging, but it's how long you're going to keep that particular member that's more critical in many cases. So how do we get that average length of stay up? And it was really about ensuring that we have a great onboarding process and facilitating that through the app, and the content that gets delivered. We might get to a little bit of the AI discussion in a minute, but offering up content that really relates to the questions that someone's answered through that onboarding process. And this is where sort of a little bit of the AI comes in to prescribe the right type of exercise and nutrition and so on for what someone's particular goals are, their current fitness level, and so on. I mean, we are certainly seeing the trend that everyone else is seeing, that, strength training is in, cardio is reducing. I mean, we're adjusting the footprint of our clubs to have more open space for people to be able to go and grab your kettlebell and a couple of dumbbells, some bands, whatever it is, and do your workout in a space somewhere. A little bit less cardiovascular equipment to be able to open up those spaces in our clubs that aren't huge. So that makes a lot of sense.
I think you touched on so much in the last two content segments here, but one thing that I found that was interesting that we've spoken quite a bit about here on this podcast is that there is a change in consumer behavior post-COVID. So a couple of things that we found, and I'm sure you've seen, is because of COVID and all the learnings and time people have had at home, they've gotten a lot more educated and informed on their own wellness. So that has really driven a couple of things. One, people are bringing their own workouts into the gym. Your gym now becomes a commodity. So I'd love to kind of understand how you would differentiate, yourself from an Anytime Fitness or somebody else. The second, you also talked about you've picked up more with corporate employers, and something that we found with brands like Equinox or more urban-based brands, they've seen a slowdown because return to the office didn't really take off except for some specific industries, and growth more in the suburbs. But you use corporate employers as a growth area because you probably have this omni-channel product. So you're able to serve a corporate customer both in the city, in where they're at, and also in at home. So I'm just curious to understand, from an educated customer perspective, what are you finding? Are people coming into the gym already knowing who you are, what your price is, what the expectation is? Is it making the sales cycle of the membership easier, or is it making it more difficult to retain them because they could kind of also take that same program and go to another gym across the street?
Yeah, one of the proof points that we look at is, our leads and lead to sale ratios and trying to understand what's actually happening. And we're seeing slightly less leads than probably what we saw last year, same time last year. But we're actually seeing a significant uptick in the actual joiners that we're bringing into the gym. So we're closing at a much better rate. A big part of that is that we launched a brand new website early last year for Snap Fitness and went to transparent pricing. And so I think that transparent pricing is just reducing the lead flow a little bit, but the quality of those leads is significantly better. And so people are coming to us much better educated around what our product is, what our price point is, and so on. So I think at the end of the day, so long as we've got someone in club that is building a good relationship with that person that comes to the club to talk about membership, they're bringing them on board as a member quite easily. We've also moved to a much easier user experience and flow online to be able to join online and to remove some of those barriers. We're not quite at the point of having launched for Snap Fitness digital door access with your phone, but we are working through that at the moment, plan to launch that by the end of the year. And that'll certainly reduce bring that seamless sort of joining experience even more to the forefront for us, as it has for a couple of our competitors in the marketplace. But we certainly wanted to get that right because that's a space that could really be a positive or a real detractor for our member experience. And we've been working through the best solution on that. I think they're probably the key pieces. I guess, Mo, the other part of the question, just remind me the other part of the question that you sort of asked.
It was really around corporate. You viewed corporate as a
Corporate.
growth area, and
Yeah.
we haven't heard that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so the corporate piece is actually probably less related to Snap Fitness, much more to fitness on demand. What we've seen is a lot more inquiries, actually 30% of our inquiries, where if I wind back probably even 18 months ago, we were getting zero inquiries, very little, maybe less than 5% of our inquiries coming through from corporate employers looking for something for their employees. That now is up to about 30% of our leads coming through for the fitness on demand business is actually corporate employers. So that's a really interesting change that's driving that. And I think part of it is exactly that. We're still in a hybrid work environment. So employers are sort of thinking, well, how do I keep my employees kind of a little bit more connected, a little bit more active? And it's all of those things, right? Rather than going and spending however much it is to buy a gym membership at Equinox in town, where, well, I've only got my employees in the office 2 or 3 days a week. I need to be able to provide them something that they can do from home. And I think a big part of where it's been beneficial for us, because we do focus a lot on the mental wellness, the basic movement content, mind, body. It's a bit of everything in there.
One final question for Ty here, I think, before we move on to the next one, is how is the franchising part of your business in general being impacted by the acquisition or merger rather of Self-Esteem Brands and Orange Theory Fitness, and then also with the recent developments from Exponential. One, I can the other two don't really have this digital fitness on demand solution. Exponential has something, but Anytime and OTF does not. But have you seen any impact to your business given some of the developments there?
No, I don't think so. Look, at the end of the day, if someone's looking to invest in one of these brands, they will come to us probably with a predisposition around what their expectation is and which brand they're already interested in. Most of the time, we actually find very few people come to us and they've shopped around 5 or 6 different brands and opportunities, and many won't be all that aware of what other organizations are actually doing, or the challenges that they may be having for various reasons. So we haven't really seen any impact from that. I think broader, being in the boutique space, we've certainly seen a slowdown in boutique franchising inquiries for both Nine Round and FitStop. If we wind back probably 2 to 3 years ago, post-COVID, we saw significant inquiries, and that's just slowed a bit. I don't think that's just Exponential. I think that's a bit of everything. I think it's just the general market. I think it's the macroeconomic environment. I think it's maybe F45, and there's a whole range of things that are playing into that. But then on the flip side, if I have a look at Snap Fitness, for example, I mean, we did the most franchise sales last year that we did since 2012. We did 77 franchise sales last year. 70% of those actually came from existing franchisees. And so that's really speaking volumes that there's a lot of confidence in our brand from our existing franchisees at the moment. Actually, in fact, last month, no, not last month because we're in June now, in April, we did 23 franchise sales for just April. 22 of those came out of APAC and 21 of them were Australia. So it just gives some confidence in the fact that we have some really strong, high-performing regions. That was a bit of an anomaly. That's a big month to have over there, part driven by the fact that the FDD renewal always happens at the end of April. So I think a few people trying to get in before we did that. But ultimately, that's still a huge month. So it's still speaking volumes from the perspective that I think people love the mid-tier 24/7 type concept, because you can certainly do multi-site franchising. You can certainly have 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 locations and run them well under management. They can be either an owner-operator model or a somewhat disconnected owner model where you potentially have them run under management full-time. And so I think those, coupled with the fact that they're returning extremely well on a slightly lower investment than something like a Planet, for example, has been really appealing. So I think in this environment where people are still wanting to be their own boss, they're wanting to have the freedom of their own business, we're still seeing a lot of interest.
How are you? One of the areas that's discussed quite a bit, and it was relevant to the conversations that we had about Exponential with their acquisition of Lindora, is this move into expanding a portfolio to cover things like GLP-1s as an example, or infrared sensors and recovery, which in some ways I guess as an outsider seems to complement the the fitness element and gives people another reason to stay engaged either with the brand or with a brand that's in close proximity to the main one. Like what are you as an organization, how are you looking at that as a space to be involved in, or deciding not to be involved in? Like where do you look at that sector?
I'm gonna quote our APAC CEO Chris Caldwell. He'll like this because he always talks about the corridor between brand dilution and innovation is very narrow. And so what's core to our brand, what has made us successful for a long time, and arguably what will make the traditional gym space successful for a long time into the future is 99, maybe not 99, 90+% of what we do day in, day out. It's our cardio, our strength, our functional training, our local community, all of those things that really build a really strong business. We are going to continue to see all sorts of things come to the fitness industry. I mean, the fitness industry is a space where fads have come and gone, and they don't tend to last very long typically. Recovery, mental wellness generally, absolutely here to stay. They've always been here. It's just a matter of what stays long term. I mean, jumping in an ice bath is absolutely the online social media fad at the moment. And I think it absolutely has benefits for your health. But administering that in a commercial sense is extremely difficult. And it's a space that for us, we're very unlikely to go into. We are certainly already delivering some wellness elements, both content through our app, mindfulness, mental well-being content, all of those sort of things, which is really important. We have started to deliver basic recovery elements within our clubs. So we have Theragun stations, a little bit more open space for stretching, content that's played in the stretching spaces through FOD, which again, we provide that content through the Fitness on Demand product. So we're certainly doing it from a more active recovery space, something that can be administered quite easily in the 24/7 type gym concept. But moving into anything more complex than that is certainly a danger to our business and could really dilute the brand and what we're really known for and what consumers want out of us. In terms of the GLP-1 and pharmaceuticals and where does that go? I mean, look, weight loss drugs and all of that sort of thing in general are always going to continue to come to the market. Pharmaceuticals are only going to continue to get better. I'm sure that these products will continue to deliver great results, but they don't deliver a whole range of other holistic well-being elements. And having a holistic well-being is not just about losing weight. And interestingly, you're only got to have a look at the top 10 trends for health and wellness over the last few years. I mean, weight loss has really started to slide down the ladder, right? And so it's being replaced with typically, I want to feel stronger. I want to feel fitter. I want to be more mentally well. And so when you think about those things, a weight loss drug, okay, it might help you lose weight and feel a bit better about yourself, but it's not going to make you feel stronger. It's not going to make you feel fitter. So the reality is you're still going to have to put in the work if you want to achieve those goals. What it may do, and what I guess we're thinking about, is that it allows someone to take that first step with a bit more confidence to get into the gym, because I think one of the biggest barriers for a lot of people, and we've heard this in a lot of the research we've done, is that people don't want to get started because they feel that little bit of unconscious, so that conscious thought of, well, I don't feel quite confident enough to get to the gym just yet. I need to lose a bit of weight first, or whatever it might be. And so I think with some of these weight loss drugs, it'll help people to lose that little bit of weight, get a bit more confident, and then take that next step. So for us, I think it's not so much right now about thinking about how we embrace the drugs themselves, but more so how we embrace those new potential customers to get started with us and remove the barrier of concern. And we went through that exercise with Snap Fitness. We went through a complete rebranding earlier in sort of late 2020, early 2021 to reposition the brand new tagline around "For the Feeling." We heard from our consumers that exercise, what's driving the consumer is not about how exercise makes them look, but more about how exercise makes them feel, and hence why we went through such a big change.
Well, look, I can definitely hear some of your experience starting as a personal trainer, which, by the way, is such an incredible journey. I actually heard the episode that you did with Matthew, I think, where you got a lot more into that journey. But you could hear that coming through, right? You've got to put in the work, but at the same time, having the empathy and recognizing that if you don't feel good about yourself, it'll be very hard to take that first step through the door. And if you do make the chance to come in and making that hard decision of first joining the gym, taking the first step, you don't know what to do. So you end up going on the treadmill for 20 minutes. You do that for 6 weeks. You feel sore. You don't understand recovery. And then you quit and you churn. And I think the pragmatic approach that you're taking is really thoughtful. I really appreciate that and even have more respect for the brand now. We came across this article on Cracked, which kind of talks about how companies are just like cashing in on Ozempic. And we've got examples here of Nestle making Ozempic friendly food. GNC is advertising a supplement to take on top of Ozempic to counter the side effects. Gyms are offering Ozempic specific programs. Again, like not much tie-in. So there's this other company talking about fixing the Ozempic face that you get. I mean, clearly people are looking at the attention of Ozempic and GLP-1 spike up, and they're just looking to ride on to that. And not many brands are taking the real pragmatic, thoughtful approach, Ty, that you and Snap are taking, which is to say, we understand it's a thing. We understand that people are impacted by it. It could certainly help supercharge you. But at the same time, we're providing a product. We're going to focus on our core competency and things that we really do well to our members. I think the second thing that we see a lot of people talk about is really AI, and how can AI help transform and change the industry? Now, I know you mentioned that you're going to focus on the 95% of what you do really well, but is that 5% maybe AI, and you think AI could really help transform what you're doing at Lyft Brands?
I think AI comes in a couple of different areas. First one, from a franchisee perspective, in how they manage and run their businesses and support their members. And certainly that's something that, we're predominantly in third-party vendors these days with our club management softwares, our CRM, and so on. So really it's been working with those partners around what does their roadmap for the introduction of AI look like. We're certainly introducing it, for example, in our website. Chatbots these days are somewhat different to what they were, 7 or 8 years ago. You really do feel like you're actually talking to a human in many cases. And so that's something that we're working through at the moment. Should probably be launching in the next couple of months. Then when it comes to the consumer, at the end of the day, it's really about how do we drive AI with the consumer. We're being a wee bit careful and a bit cautious. We don't want to jump too far in. Where we see this working the best in the short term is very much around the prescription of the right content, the right exercise, nutritional programs through our digital platform, through our app today. And so I think we're getting much better at asking the right questions of our new members when they're onboarding, bucketing them into the right persona. And people want, interestingly, I was over in Geneva just a couple of days ago. I'm digressing a little bit here, but I was over in Geneva and I sat through a number of different health panels, and a lot of them were actually pharmaceutical companies talking about their products and how they work with the doctors, for example, and the end clinicians to deliver something to the end patient. And what they're really hearing a lot of is that the patient wants something really ultra focused on them as an individual. And I think we can really embrace that within the fitness industry. How do we use technology and AI to really hyper-personalize and individualize content and what the consumer is getting at the end? And I think that's where we're quite focused in terms of how do we introduce that AI into our app. Really, we've done it lightly to begin with around exercise prescription and programming suggestion. There's a lot more we can do with it. We're just at the start of that. We've vetted a lot of different ideas. Actually, one that we're just working through at the moment to launch is moving away from a physical system that you need to do your body scanning through, like an InBody or an Evolt and so on. And actually, we've moved to an in-app AI-generated process where you just sit your phone in front of you, it scans your body through the camera, and it actually gives you a very accurate reading of your body composition. And so, we're going to continue to see some very, very intelligent AI pieces that we can fold in. I think it's just being careful with, what meets the roadmap, staying true to your core competencies, and then just adding those extra bits to really hyper-personalize the experience.
Hi, it's been great to have you on Lyft. I've certainly learned a lot, and I typically pride myself on someone that knows a lot of what's kind of happening in the industry, but you've certainly opened my eyes into Lyft and into Snap Fitness. We appreciate you coming on. To kind of wrap up your thoughts of this episode and thoughts of the week, do you have any final comments on the topics that we have spoken about today?
Yeah, I think the most important piece that we talked about actually was for in particular if you're a franchisee or a gym owner out there, whether it be independent or franchised, really think about what's key for your consumer. Don't get distracted by all the new, because you can really go down a rabbit hole that won't necessarily benefit your business nor your customer. And outside of that, I hope I've shared some wisdoms that might be able to be considered across the board. And what we're doing is not necessarily always the best direction for everybody. It is for us. We listen to our franchisees and our consumers a lot. But I think if you're listening to your consumer being, absolutely core to your competencies and what you deliver in the marketplace, then you'll no doubt do well.
I really appreciate that, Ty. And Matthew, we certainly talked a lot about fundamentals today. Do you have any final thoughts for this week?
Yeah, you mentioned fundamentals, and as Ty was speaking, I was comparing how they position themselves to other businesses in the sector. But one of the things that came through, and I'm not sure if I've sort of quoted this right, but the fine line between innovation and distraction, I think that was something along the lines of that. And I think that's very true, because regardless of who you are as a brand, what the products are that you deliver, I think there's a temptation to go outside of your core competencies and your strengths. And I've interviewed you before, Ty, and other people in your organization. And I really admire the focus on the core product. That certainly comes through from other people that you speak to in the business, and it's obviously a key thing that you clearly have to work hard to maintain. It's certainly very easy to go off track, but I'm sure that's a key part in the success of your brands, and something I think we can make sure we sort of take some good lessons from as well. Mo, your final thought?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of really pick up on where you both left off, which is focus on the fundamentals. And even if you're looking at technology, I'm a technologist. And a lot of times we have to pull people back from getting too excited and running in one direction without knowing where you're going. And a lot of times people look for new problems for technology to solve, rather than saying, I've got a problem, how is technology going to help me solve that? So I really appreciate the pragmatism, Ty, that you've taken. I'm sure your executive team has also taken into how you implement and execute new technology.
Appreciate it, gents. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lifts. If you've got any comments on anything that we've said, you can go to our Lifts LinkedIn page. We'd love to hear your thoughts and any other further questions you have. And if you've got anything from this episode, please share it with one or two other people so we can get this out to more people. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening.